Hello everyone. I am Dr. Prabhashini Vijayavantha, Senior Lecturer attached to the Department of Human Resource Management, Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. Under this IHRM or International Human Resource Management video lecture series, we are going to discuss in the today's session about staffing international operations. So, by now, we all know that international human resource management is practiced in mostly multinational corporations or in organizations with international operations. So, these organizations have their main office, or we call it the headquarters, in a particular country, and they offer their products or services or any other market offering to the other parts of the world as well, that is, to the other countries. So, as we learned under the discussion on how these international organizations are created, the organizations can go international using different modes. So, if a multinational corporation decides to start a sales subsidiary abroad, or if they decide to start a fully owned subsidiary abroad in one country or in multiple foreign countries, so basically they are managing international operations. And one such aspect related to managing these international operations is to staff that operation. That is, how they are going to employ people in that international operation. So that's what we are going to discuss in this today's lecture. So, after discussing the introduction of international human resource management and how organizations go international, that is, after focusing from the global business environment to the global organization context, now we are further narrowing down our focus to the context of managing people in an international operation. These are the learning outcomes that we expect to achieve out of this session. So we all know what are learning outcomes. Learning outcomes are the outcomes that we expect to achieve at the end of the session, our teaching and your learning process. So, on completion of this session, you as students should be able to explain the role of human resource management in international business operations. So, when it comes to multinational companies or internationally operating organizations, we all know that they have international business operations. Then, what is the role of the human resource management department of the headquarters and the subsidiaries related to these operations? We will discuss about that here, and thereafter you should be able to explain the same. Then The main challenge that the international firms face is regarding making the decision of how to staff the foreign operation. So when a company decides to establish foreign operations or operations in foreign countries, they need to decide how they are going to staff this operation, or who are they going to employ in that operation. Whether they are going to employ people from the headquarters or the country in which the headquarters is located, or are we going to recruit staff from the country the subsidiary or the foreign operation is located. So there are different approaches available. So scholars in the field of international human resource management have discussed, or rather presented, various approaches or methods available to staff foreign operations. So I will explain, or I will first mention them one by one, and thereafter I will explain each of those approaches. And then we will discuss the advantages and disadvantages or issues associated with each approach. Then finally, we will move on to discuss about international assignments. So, irrespective of which staffing approach multinationals take, they often use international assignments to a certain extent. So, what is an international assignment? International assignment is an assignment or a placement or a job where an employee who is living in one country may be requested by the company to go and work in another country's operation for, let's say, from 3 months to maybe 5 years. So these are called international assignments, or in short IAs, or we call them expatriate assignments. So irrespective of the staffing approach that the companies use, they use international assignments to a certain extent. So why are multinational companies using international assignments? We will list out the reasons. Why? The reasons. And then we will discuss each of those reasons. So this is what we expect to achieve at the end of the session. At the outset of our discussion, I am going to pose you a small challenge. It's not actually me who is going to pose that challenge, but this blue here. So he is faced with a problem, or rather a challenge, and he wants your advice. Can you please advise me how to appoint a new finance director for our Irish subsidiary? We are a USMNE. I have the following options. So this blue-faced man is from a USMNE, or a multinational enterprise based in USA. So that means this multinational enterprise is headquartered in United States of America. As per our understanding, what is United States? United States is the home country or the parent country of this business. And this person wants advice from you regarding appointing a very senior position. Can you please advise me how to appoint a new finance director? For what? For their Irish subsidiary, which means this multinational enterprise or the MNE has a subsidiary. Where is it located? It's located in Ireland. It may have other subsidiaries as well, but the focus here is about their Irish subsidiary. So he is faced with a challenge or a confusion regarding how to appoint a new finance director for this Irish subsidiary. He has the following options. So you need to advise him which option to select. So there are 4 options available for him. The first one, select from the finance staff available at the parent operation. So the first option is to select or choose from whom? From the finance staff available at the parent operation. So we all know that the parent operation of this company is located in United States of America. So they may be having a finance department and there may be staff. So the first option is to select one person, a qualified person from the finance staff available in the finance department at the parent operation in United States of America. In that case, the company will be sending a parent country national to the Irish subsidiary, or they may be sending a PCN. The second option they have is without sending a person from United States of America to do a new recruitment. They can advertise and recruit a suitably qualified candidate locally. That is from where? From Ireland, where the subsidiary is located. Then they are selecting a person from the host country itself. Then that person is a host country national. That is option 2. Then the third option is what? Seek a suitable candidate from one of our other foreign subsidiaries. So the third option is rather than selecting a person available from the headquarters or rather than recruiting somebody locally, they can seek or search or find a suitably qualified candidate from where? From one of their foreign subsidiaries located in any of the countries in the world. Then the fourth option is to seek or search or look for a suitable candidate or a suitably qualified candidate from anywhere in the world. Whether it's from a foreign subsidiary or not is not a concern for us. We will be selecting a suitable candidate from anywhere in the world through open advertisement. According to international human resource management literature, there are 4 main approaches that are adopted by the multinational corporations or internationally operating organizations to staff their international operations. So they would select one of these approaches to staff their foreign operations. This does not mean that one organization will stick to one approach and it will use that approach across all its subsidiaries. There could be multinational enterprises which select one approach and use that approach across all subsidiaries for staffing. But at the same time, there could also be multinational companies which use different approaches based on different reasons to staff different subsidiaries. So, what are these approaches? So, there are four approaches, namely the ethnocentric staffing approach or the ethnocentric orientation, polycentric approach or the polycentric orientation, the geocentric approach or the geocentric orientation, and the regiocentric approach or the regiocentric orientation. So, the person who introduced these approaches for the first time is called Perlmutter, and he has done it in 1969. So, according to Perlmutter, there are three staffing approaches as shown in this illustration. But the later scholars, through their research, have identified that there could be another approach, and they have added this approach called the regiocentric approach later. So, in the initial Perlmutter's approach, there had been only three staffing approaches, which are ethnocentric, polycentric, and geocentric. The late addition is the regiocentric approach. So, these staffing approaches are also referred to as cultural predispositions in some other literature. They use this term because these scholars who use this term believe that a multinational company will determine on how they are going to staff their subsidiaries based on their cultural predisposition or their cultural orientation or their cultural thinking. And also some scholars identify these as the attitudes of senior management. Why? Because these scholars have found out that multinational companies will select their staffing approach based on the attitudes of the senior management of that organization. So next, we will look at each of these approaches one by one. Before discussing about each of these approaches in detail, it would be better to get an overview of each of the three main approaches. So, as I told earlier, these three approaches are identified as the approaches used by multinational corporations to staff international operations, or these are called as the attitudes of the senior management of these multinational corporations, or else these are called as the cultural orientations or predispositions of multinational corporations. So, which is the first? The first attitude that the senior management of a multinational corporation could hold is the ethnocentric attitude. So, what is this ethnocentric attitude? It is the parochialistic belief that the best work approaches and practices are those of the home country. So, this attitude is also identified as a parochialistic belief. So, it is a belief, attitude, or a thinking that we are the best. Our country is the best. So, we call it a parochialistic belief. So it's such a belief that the best work approaches or the best approaches to work, the best ways of doing work and best work practices are known by the home country or the employees from the home country. So that means the subsidiaries should be staffed by the people or the employees from the home country or the country in which the multinational company has its headquarters. So we call it the home country or the parent country. Then what is the second attitude? It is called the polycentric attitude. The polycentric attitude is the view that the managers in the host country know the best work approaches and practices for running the business in their country. To the opposite of the ethnocentric attitude, under the polycentric attitude, the multinational corporations and their managers view or see that the managers in the host country, that is where the subsidiary is located, knows the best work approaches and practices, best ways to approach work, and best practices to do work for running the business or doing the business in their country, that is, in the host country, where the subsidiary is located. So, what is the third approach then? So it is the geocentric attitude. So the geocentric attitude is a world-oriented view that focuses on using the best approaches and people from around the globe. So this is different from both the ethnocentric approach, where they believe the home country, its practices, and its people are the best, and the polycentric approach, which believes that the host country, its approaches, and practices are the best. So, the geocentric attitude is an attitude or a way that is oriented or targeted or focused at the whole world. So under that way, we focus on using the best approaches and people. So the multinational company will adopt or start using the best approaches that they can get to know from anywhere in the world. Even if it is not practiced in the home country, they would introduce it. Even though if it is not practiced in the host country, they would introduce it. And also they would employ or staff the subsidiary with people from anywhere around the globe. It could be from a country where the subsidiary is located, or it could be from a country where a subsidiary is not located, or it could be from the home country itself. So whatever it is, they are using the best people and the best approaches without considering about the country of this employee or the country of origin of this business practice. So now let's commence our discussion to discuss about each of these approaches in detail. So let's begin with the ethnocentric approach. So this picture talks about the ethnocentric approach very clearly. So, according to this picture, in which country is the headquarters or the corporate headquarters of this multinational company located? It is located in USA or the United States of America. So, according to the country categorization of in international HRM, which country is USA? USA is the home country of this multinational company, or we can call it the parent country. So, the parent company is located in USA. And who are working in this corporate headquarters? It is US nationals. So the people from USA are working in this US multinational company headquartered in USA. So according to the employee categorization in international human resource management, how do we call these employees? We call them home country nationals or parent country nationals. And then we'll move on to look at the host country. So the countries in which the subsidiaries of multinational companies are located are called host countries. So according to this picture, the subsidiary of this multinational company is located in Mexico. So Mexico is a host country. So who are working in the Mexican subsidiary? Under the ethnocentric approach, as the companies believe that the best work approaches and practices are in the home country, they employ people from the home country in the subsidiaries as well to transfer those best practices to the subsidiaries. Thus, in the host operation also, the key positions are occupied by the US nationals. So, these US nationals are parent country nationals or home country nationals. So, by looking at this picture itself, you can get a very thorough understanding about the ethnocentric approach. So, what are the characteristics of the ethnocentric approach? Under the ethnocentric approach, they believe that the best approaches and the best practices are what is used at the home country. So therefore, the strategic decisions related to the overall business, including the headquarters operation and the operations of the subsidiaries, are made at the headquarters. So we know when it comes to a business, we need to take certain decisions. Decision making is a very important aspect in doing business. We need to make the correct decisions at the correct time. And when it comes to a business, the key decisions related to the business are called the strategic decisions. And usually, based on the input received from the lower layers of the employees, the strategic decisions are made by the top management of a company, because they are so important for determining the direction of the business. This includes determining the strategic goals, determining the strategies to be adopted to run the business, etc. And all these decisions are made at the corporate headquarters located in the home country, and they are communicated for action to the host countries where the subsidiaries are located. The subsidiaries or the employees there are not getting involved in making these decisions. So, the subsidiaries have to execute or implement the strategic decisions made at the headquarters. Subsidiaries themselves do not have autonomy or freedom or liberty to make their own decisions. They have a very limited autonomy or freedom. They have some amount of autonomy to customize those decisions, but it's very, very limited. So, under this approach, both in the domestic operations, that is at the headquarters, as well as in foreign operations, that is in subsidiaries. In all these operations, the key positions or the top management positions, like the chairman or the president or the chief executive officer, chief operating officer, HR director, marketing director, supply chain director, all these key positions are occupied or held by whom? By the personnel or employees or people from the headquarters. So headquarters will determine who will go and work in subsidiaries in the key positions, and they would send these personnel to the subsidiaries. So then those people sent by the sub headquarters to the subsidiary, who are called as home country nationals or PCNs or parent country nationals, will be managing or running the subsidiaries according to the key decisions and the management input that they receive from the headquarters. So these headquarters personnel in this instance will have to go to foreign countries where the subsidiaries are located, and they will have to stay in those countries and work there. So now you can see how expatriates come into the scene. So then these headquarters personnel who go and reside temporarily in foreign countries where subsidiaries are located, and who work in these subsidiaries, are identified as expatriates. So we will discuss in detail about expatriates in the next lesson. Before that, we'll continue discussing about these 3 to 4 staffing approaches. Now, let's look at the reasons for pursuing an ethnocentric staffing policy. So, now it's slightly clear to you and it's visible to you that adopting an ethnocentric staffing policy is not going to be an easy task for a multinational corporation. Definitely, they will have to send employees from the headquarters to the subsidiaries as expatriates, which incurs a lot of effort and cost. So, despite all that, what are the reasons or why do multinationals adopt this staffing policy? Or why do they pursue this staffing policy? These are a few reasons. The headquarters and the top management of the multinational corporation and the HR department thinks or perceives that there's no enough qualified or competent people in the host country to occupy the top management positions in the subsidiary. So when a subsidiary is opened or taken over, a subsidiary in a foreign location may be established in 2 ways. The first method is a multinational company headquartered in a particular country may decide to expand their operations to another country. Let's say, for an example, a multinational corporation headquartered in USA decides that they want to expand their business to Africa, and they have decided to start a subsidiary in South Africa. So they buy a piece of land, construct buildings, and start their subsidiary from the scratch. That's one way of starting a subsidiary. And they will have to recruit staff from the smallest position to the topmost position. The other way is the multinational company headquartered in a particular country may go and take over a particular business in another country, and that becomes their subsidiary thereafter. So that subsidiary has buildings, land, and employees. So whichever the method that the company has used to take over the subsidiary, there may be instances or situations where they perceive or believe or think that there is no, or there is, but still there is a shortage of qualified host country nationals to occupy the topmost positions in the subsidiary. So then they will have to send people from the headquarters. Here, qualified or competent means not having the paper qualifications, but having the necessary knowledge, skills, attitudes, and the exposure required to manage the subsidiary operation. The second reason for a multinational to pursue An ethnocentric approach is the need to maintain good communications, coordination, and control links with corporate headquarters. So when a multinational corporation decides that they need to maintain a good connection with the subsidiary in the initial days of its operation, they will adopt this ethnocentric staffing policy. In the initial days of establishing or taking over a subsidiary, the corporate headquarters of the multinational company may have a need or a requirement to what? To maintain good communications, good connections, and a proper coordination or a proper connection and some amount of control with the corporate headquarters. So these things can be easily done if they have a person from the headquarters in the subsidiary, because that person will act or behave according to the requirements of the headquarters than a person from the host country. So in that instance also, the company may decide to adopt an ethnocentric staffing policy. Furthermore, a multinational company may decide to adopt the ethnocentric staffing policy to reduce the high risk involved with the foreign operation during early stages of establishing or acquisition. So, as I told earlier, a multinational corporation may decide to start or expand their business to foreign locations through foreign operations or overseas operations. So they may do it in two ways. One, by establishing their own subsidiary in the foreign country, or they may acquire an existing operation in a foreign country and take it under their control and make it a subsidiary. Whichever the method they have used during the early stages of establishment or acquisition, the business is not stable. The business is in the introductory and growth stages. So there is a huge amount or a high amount of risk involved with this. So there is a very high amount of risk involved with the business at this stage. If the headquarters does not manage the business well, the business may collapse due to cultural blunders, due to resistance coming from the pestle factors, due to mismanagement, the costs will increase. So, to reduce or mitigate this risk, it is useful for a multinational to have a parent company person in the key positions of the subsidiary. So then they would adopt the ethnocentric staffing policy, where they would send employees from the headquarters on expatriate assignments. So the scholars in the field of international human resource management identify these assignments or these expatriate assignments as controlling assignments. Why? They are using these assignments to control the subsidiary using the trust between the headquarters and the parent country national who is now working in the subsidiary. Even though multinational companies adopt this ethnocentric staffing approach or the staffing policy, it has some disadvantages as well. What are they? It limits the promotion opportunities of HCNs or host country nationals, which may lead to reduced productivity and increased turnover of HCNs. So, if a multinational company decides to continuously staff its subsidiaries according to the ethnocentric staffing policy, continuously the top management positions of the subsidiaries will be occupied by the parent country nationals who are on expatriate assignments. As a result, what will happen? It will limit or restrict or reduce the opportunities. For whom? For the host country nationals who are working in the subsidiary. For what? To promote to the top management positions. Because at the top there is a glass ceiling. The top management positions are there, but there is a barrier. What is that barrier? The staffing policy of the company. It is an ethnocentric staffing policy. So as a result, above that particular level cannot be reached by the host country nationals. So that would limit, restrict, or reduce the opportunities to promote or go up in the career ladder for the host country nationals. And this situation may lead to reduced productivity. This situation may lead to reduce or lower the productivity of these host country nationals. Why? They would not be productive or they may not be motivated to perform even though they have the capacity to perform. Why? How much ever they perform and how much effort they put in for performance, there is a particular limit that they can go, and after that, it is restricted by a glass ceiling. So, this lack of motivation may also lead to increased employee turnover. When these employees are demotivated, they might leave the company. They might resign from the company, and it would increase the employee turnover rate, which is not a good sign for the multinational. And these employees are often well qualified, well trained, high performing, high potential talent. And when these people leave the company, they take a large amount of tacit knowledge with them, and those knowledge would be transferred to the competitor firms. And this would incur huge costs and losses for the multinational company in terms of the stock of human capital. The multinational company will have to incur costs to recruit the replacement then familiarize the replacement, train the replacement, and whatever is done, the replacements may take quite a long time to come to that level of those performers who left the company. So this is a huge loss for the companies. The second thing, expatriate managers may take long to adapt to host countries. So, under the ethnocentric staffing policy, the top management positions of the subsidiary are occupied by the parent country nationals or home country nationals who will be sent by the corporate headquarters to the host country to temporarily live there and work there. So these people or these employees are identified as corporate expatriates who are on international assignments. So these expatriate managers will have to leave their own countries, which they are already familiar, and go and temporarily reside in the host countries which they may be not much familiar with, and they will have to adjust to the country conditions and the subsidiary conditions and then do the work. So these expatriate managers may take some time. Sometimes it could be a long time. For what? To adapt themselves and their accompanying families to the host country context. So during this adaptation time lag, during this adaptation time lag, the performance of this expatriate manager would be poor. The next reason, the next disadvantage is possible poor decisions and mistakes by PCNs. So, when it comes to parent country nationals, they are now going and working in host countries which they are not familiar with. So, as a result, when they are running the business, they might take poor decisions and they might make mistakes. They might do blunders, especially because they are not familiar with the socio-cultural conditions of the host country, and they do not know how to deal with the employees. So sometimes problems or conflicts with trade unions might occur. So there is a possibility. It's not always the case, but there is a possibility that these employees might create or make blunders. So these possibilities for poor decisions and mistakes may create a cost or incur a cost for the company. Then discrimination in compensation between parent country nationals and host country nationals. So when it comes to host country nationals, there is a particular way of paying those host country nationals. And when these expatriate employees are sent from the corporate headquarters to the subsidiaries, these PCNs are paid at a higher level. And that is why they are also accepting these challenging foreign assignments and going. So then the PCNs who are working in the host country may be earning more than the locals who are working in the host country. In addition, the PCNs may be receiving the hardship premiums and other allowances and benefits. So, the host country nationals who might not like this change, or the host country nationals who do not like this staffing approach, may look at this compensation system also negatively. They might feel this as a discrimination. So these discriminations in compensation between parent country nationals and host country nationals may lead to reduced productivity and performance by the host country nationals. It might lead to trade union issues. It might lead to certain resistances coming from the host country nationals. Last, though multinational companies send expatriate employees on international assignments, the cost that the multinational company will have to incur or bear for maintaining these expatriates in the overseas location or the foreign country or the host country is very high, because these are corporate expatriates who are going to a foreign country to work, not because they want to go, but because their company wants to go, need to be maintained by the company itself. And these expatriates expect a lot of things from the company. That is why they are making this sacrifice. They expect new status in the career, and they expect increased authority, and they expect high standards of living in the foreign location. So the company will have to provide them luxurious accommodation, vehicles, and other perquisites to the expatriate and their accompanying family members. So, according to a survey done by PricewaterhouseCoopers, an average expatriate cost assignment would cost 103,000 to 396,000 US dollars per annum for a multinational company. Next, let's look at the polycentric staffing approach. So, this picture gives you a clear understanding about the polycentric staffing approach. What is the polycentric approach? Under this approach, the headquarters of the multinational company believes that the best work approaches and the best people for the subsidiary will be the locals, and therefore they will be employing the locals in the top, middle, and lower management and employment positions of the subsidiary. If we look at this picture, this multinational corporation is headquartered in Australia. So, the corporate headquarters is located in Australia, which is the parent country or the home country of the multinational. and the headquarters operation is staffed by the Australian nationals or the home country nationals or the parent country nationals, in short, whom we call the PCNs. Then they have a subsidiary in India. So India is the host country, and the Indian subsidiary is staffed by Indians. So Indians are host country nationals. Under the polycentric staffing approach, the management of the multinational corporation believes that each subsidiary located in each foreign country is a distinct national entity. So each subsidiary is a distinct or a separate national entity or a national unit located in a foreign country. And it should have some decision-making autonomy because of that. So each subsidiary should have some freedom or autonomy to make the decisions related to their own operation. So rather than completely or largely limiting the decision-making autonomy of the subsidiary, like in the ethnocentric approach, under this approach, the headquarters would be willing to give some decision-making autonomy to the subsidiary. Host country nationals manage subsidiaries who are seldom promoted to HQ positions. Under the polycentric approach, the host country nationals from the host country will manage the subsidiary located in that particular host country. So, all the managerial level positions of the subsidiary are occupied by the locals, which means nobody or no employees from the corporate headquarters will be sent as expatriates to manage the subsidiary. But at the same time, these host country nationals who once they reach the topmost position in management in the subsidiary, they are not promoted to the headquarters. They'll have to remain in their own country, in their subsidiary. They are very rarely promoted to positions in the headquarters, because these companies believe that these host country nationals, though are competent and qualified enough to manage the subsidiary operation, are not qualified and competent enough to take up positions in the headquarters. So they are not promoted to those positions. Parent country nationals also similarly, as I mentioned before, are very rarely transferred to the subsidiaries. So the parent country nationals are very rarely transferred or sent on international assignments to the subsidiaries. So, in these companies which adopt the polycentric approach, there will be very limited corporate expatriates, and therefore the HR departments of these companies will have to put in very limited effort to manage those expatriate employees. So the parent country nationals will be working in their home country or the headquarters, while host country nationals will be working in their host country or the subsidiary location. So, this approach is identified as a very good approach or a very suitable approach when host governments, the governments of host countries where the subsidiaries are located, tend to dictate or control or put restrictions and regulations that key managerial positions or top management positions of the subsidiary located in their country should be filled by local nationals. So, when multinational companies want to start operations in host countries or in foreign countries, they need to negotiate with the governments of those countries. So, the ministries, the ministers, the government departments, and organizations will engage in these negotiations with them. So, during these negotiations, though those governments of those host countries would warmly welcome these kind of foreign direct investments coming from the multinationals, they would dictate or they would control or they would impose some restrictions and guidelines. One such common guideline that they would make or that they would impose is that they would say, okay, you are most welcome to our country. You are invited to invest in our country and start doing business. And you are allowed to earn profits by doing business in our country. But there is one condition: the key or the top management positions of this subsidiary should be filled by our own local nationals from the host country, and you should not be sending anybody from your headquarters. The PCNs are allowed to visit, but they are not expected or would be allowed to work in our country. We would not be granting them work visas or work permits. So, in such situations, multinationals will have to adopt this approach, which is the polycentric approach. What are the advantages that an organization can enjoy by adopting a polycentric staffing policy to staff their international operations? So, when an organization adopts the polycentric staffing policy, they are employing the host country nationals who are locals in the subsidiary location. So, employing host country nationals would eliminate or remove the language barriers that would occur among the staff members of the subsidiary, because all the staff in the subsidiary are locals who are from the same country that the subsidiary is located. So they all speak one common language, and therefore it would eliminate the barriers that would occur due to the language difficulties in communication. And under this approach, as I mentioned earlier, the multinational corporation is not sending the parent country nationals as expatriates to subsidiaries. So, as the expatriates are not there, and the problems related to expatriates and their accompanying family members will be eliminated. So, adopting a polycentric staffing policy would avoid or eliminate the adjustment problems that would occur when employing expatriates and the accompanying family members. So, as there are no expatriates being used, the multinational corporation does not have to incur any costs related to expatriation. While we will be discussing in detail about expatriates and their accompanying families, and expatriate adjustments related to host contexts under the topic recruiting and selecting staff for international assignments, we will also be discussing about providing these expatriates and their families with training under the topic international training and development. So, for the time being, I will just mention what are cultural awareness training programs. So, when an expatriate employee is sent from one country to another country, to work in that country, to temporarily reside and work in that country, that person needs to get familiar with the culture of the foreign country. So it is the duty of the HR department of the multinational corporation together with the HR department of the subsidiary to provide training for these expatriate employees and their accompanying family members to support them to adjust to the foreign location. So these trainings are usually provided before the departure for the foreign assignment. So we call these pre-departure training programs. So these training programs are provided prior to the departure to orient the employee for the assignment. We will discuss about pre-departure training programs under the topic International Training and Development. So, one of the key components or essential components of a pre-departure training program is the Cultural Awareness Program, or we call it the Cultural Immersion Training Program. As the employee goes to a foreign country, he needs to be aware about the culture of that country. So, this module of the pre-departure training program is focused at providing awareness to the employee about the culture of the foreign location. So the companies will incur some amount of money to conduct these training programs. Now, if a company is using the polycentric staffing policy, there is no need of this kind of expensive cultural awareness training programs. Why? Because there are no pre-departure training programs organized, because there are no expatriates. Next thing, adopting the polycentric policy has no impact at times of sensitive political issues. So we all know that the organizations operate in a not only multinational corporations, but all types of organizations do not operate within a vacuum. They operate within an environment. We call it the organizational environment or the business environment. So, when it comes to multinational enterprises, their subsidiaries operate in different locations. And there may be situations where political issues occur in those foreign locations where the subsidiaries operate. If you recall what happened in Sri Lanka in 2022, the power crisis or the energy crisis, the fuel crisis, the political instability and related turmoil occurred in the country. So these kinds of political issues or problems can occur in any country at any time. When we watch world news, we can identify or see these. And some of these issues or problems become very sensitive, where sometimes when the parties might attack against multinational companies and their employees to show their objection to the countries, the foreign countries, their political leaders, and also to create turmoil in their own countries. So during such times, the headquarters of the multinational will have to look into this issue and see whether there are any expatriates who have gone and are working in the subsidiary and whether they are safe. So, but when the polycentric policy is adopted, there is no impact or influence at times of this kind of issues. Why? Because then it's only locals who are working there. So all these points will easily indicate to you that the polycentric policy is less expensive for a multinational company because it does not have to incur a lot of costs. And this approach will encourage the employees of the host country, that is, the locals, to be productive and perform because they have the opportunity to reach the very top of the subsidiary if they perform well. So it would avoid or reduce the turnover of these managers in the host country because they have a very clear career path without a glass ceiling or a glass barrier. Let's look at the disadvantages of the polycentric staffing policy. The main disadvantage of adopting the polycentric staffing policy is the gap that is created between the corporate headquarters and the subsidiaries. So, the corporate headquarters will have their own parent country nationals as employees, while the subsidiaries will have their local staff as their employees. As a result, a gap is created between the corporate headquarters and the subsidiaries, and it becomes very difficult for the top management of the multinationals to bridge this gap between the corporate headquarters and the subsidiaries. This is further this is fu- this is further emphasized by the language barriers and the cultural differences between the headquarters and the subsidiary. So if the headquarters and the subsidiaries use the same language, and if the corporate headquarters is located in a country which speaks English or which uses English as their main native language, and if the subsidiary is also located in a country where English is the native language, then the language barriers or the differences in language could be minimized. But if the country in which the corporate headquarters is using one language and the country in which the subsidiary is located is using another language, the language barriers would occur because there is no instance for the languages to mix and for all the people to speak and use one common language. And there would be differences in cultures, national cultures, as well as the organizational cultures. If the national culture of the parent country and the national culture of the host country has a vast difference, and as there are no PCNs in the subsidiary, as it is challenging to transfer the organizational culture of the headquarters to the subsidiary, there would be massive cultural differences between the headquarters and its staff and the subsidiary and its staff. So these cultural differences may be manifested in attitudes related to doing business. So these differences may be visible regarding how the businesses handle competition, etc. So it would be very difficult to create a bridge between these factors such as language, culture, attitude to business, etc. And at the same time, though we saw as an advantage that the host country nationals have the opportunity to reach the top level of the subsidiary, we could also see that they have no opportunities or very limited opportunities to go outside their subsidiary. Host country nationals have very limited opportunities to progress beyond the subsidiary and gain experience outside their own country by going abroad. So they are finding it difficult to gain experience by going outside their own country on international operations as expatriates because there are no opportunities for them to go to foreign countries as corporate expatriates. So therefore, they will be just stuck inside the subsidiary. The same will happen with the parent country nationals. They would get stuck at the corporate headquarters because again they will also have limited opportunities to progress beyond their headquarters to foreign countries and gain that experience and exposure by temporarily living and working outside their own country. So, this kind of narrow-minded thinking that will be created in the long term within the staff of the headquarters as well as the subsidiaries may interrupt or disturb or would create problems or difficulties with making strategic decisions of the business. What is the geocentric approach? So, looking at this illustration, we can see that the parent company of this organization is located in them. So, United Kingdom is the home country or the parent country of this company. And who are working in the parent company? Americans, Italians, Spanish, Koreans, and Denmark. People are working in this parent company. And most probably there may be UK citizens too. And then they have a subsidiary where in United States of America. So United States of America becomes a host country for this company. So again, who are working there? People from Canada, America, UK and Japan and so many other countries are working there as well. So this indicates people from multiple countries are working in the parent country as well as in the subsidiary. And that is what the gist of the geocentric approach is. Under the geocentric approach, the organizations are using a global approach to their business operations. So, an organization will have their business operations in one country where they have the headquarters, and then they would have subsidiaries in multiple countries in the world. But they would not be willing to identify it as a company based in a particular country. Instead, they would prefer to identify them as a global organization with a presence around the world. So they would have a global approach to their business operations. And these business operations are located worldwide. And also these operations are staffed by people from around the world. So it is identified as a worldwide business. So around the world, the business is there and staff is coming from around the world, and all the employees, all the staff and all the operations are highly integrated or interconnected. Then these multinationals or these global organizations, we all look at each part of the business, that is the headquarters and multiple subsidiaries of the organization, as contributors which make a unique contribution to the business with their unique competencies. Each unit is given an equal place. The headquarters does not have any dominance. Each subsidiary as well as the headquarters are expected to be making a unique contribution to the overall success of the business, which cannot be matched by the other parts of the business or other units of the business. These units would be using their own unique competencies, that is, knowledge, skills, attitudes, and exposure in running the business. And when staffing these international operations using the geocentric approach, the multinational companies or the global organizations focus only on one thing, that is the competencies of these employees or the abilities of these employees, their business knowledge about the business, their skill portfolio, their attitudes towards business, and their exposure. So ability is favored above everything, and the nationality or the ethnicity of the employee is completely ignored. According to the scholars in international HRM, Vodafone, the Europe telecommunication company, is one of the organizations which has successfully adopted this approach. Despite the difficulties of the challenges that a multinational company will have to face by adopting a geocentric policy, why do multinationals still tend to adopt a geocentric policy? That's because of its advantages. So, what are the advantages of a geocentric policy? A geocentric policy enables a multinational enterprise to develop or create a pool of international employees or an international executive team. That is, an executive team or a senior management team representing multiple countries. If you look at the headquarters and all the subsidiaries and look at their top managements, you would be able to see a pool of employees from different countries. So, this kind of an internal pool of labor or this kind of a pool of internal staff would be a great advantage for an organization, so that this pool can be deployed throughout the global organization at any location. And then these biases that occur due to the host country and the parent country will not occur. And this approach supports or contributes to create a cooperation and resource sharing between or across different subsidiaries and the headquarters without a problem. What are the disadvantages of the geocentric policy? Or what are the difficulties or challenges that a multinational company will have to face because of adopting a geocentric policy? When a geocentric policy is adopted, a multinational company may be sending employees from different countries to work in a particular host location. So then this would limit the potential employment opportunities for the locals or the host country nationals. As we discussed before, the governments of these host countries allow these multinational companies to enter into their countries and start operations in their countries and do business there as a foreign direct investment. Though these companies bring capital and the host countries and their governments welcome that capital, inflow of capital, those countries and their governments does not welcome or prefer the inflow of labor from other countries. Why? Because one of the objectives of allowing or encouraging foreign direct investments is to provide increased employment opportunities to the locals. But when this arrival of employees from multiple countries occur and the HR department of the multinational is seeking work permits or work visa to these employees, it may create serious problems between the multinational company, its HR department, and the government of the host country. And when obtaining the work permit and work visas, and when handling the tax payments required from these employees, the HR department and the multinational company must or have to face or deal with a huge array or a lot of administrative procedures or procedures related to documentation or submitting documents related to the arriving employee along with justifications as to why they are not providing employment to locals and why they are bringing down foreign people for employment. How much amidst or despite a huge struggle, even if the multinational company succeeds in obtaining the work permits, work visa, and the approvals to get down foreign nationals for employment in their organization, there would be serious difficulties or inabilities of obtaining or getting a work permit or a work visa for the accompanying spouse of these expatriate managers. So, in this situation, the company may have to request these expatriate managers or employees to come alone, leaving their spouses and children in their own country because it would be very difficult to get a work permit for the accompanying spouse. So, some spouses, especially if the expatriate manager is a female, may not like to come and stay at home as a husband or a male while the wife is working as an expatriate manager. It could be the same with male managers' spouses as well. And therefore, these employees might refuse to accept this kind of expatriate assignments. So, one of the strategies adopted by Japanese multinationals is to encourage their employees to go alone without taking their spouse and children. But that might end of the day lead to detachments with family, reduced family relationships, causing work family imbalance or work family conflict. Then this geocentric policy is very, very expensive for a multinational company to implement. Why? A company which implements a geocentric policy may have to incur huge costs because they need to engage in providing training for the expatriate employees coming from multiple countries to multiple countries. So they may have to conduct frequent training programs and multiple training programs. So the costs of these training programs are very high, and the relocation costs regarding providing accommodation, food, uh, schooling for children, all these air passage, all these relocation costs are also very high. Furthermore, the geocentric policy may require or need a very long lead time. It would require or need a very long time to fill a particular vacancy. It takes a longer lead time. That is from the date of the vacancy is created to the time the vacancy is filled. And also the staffing process, or the process of staffing all the subsidiary operations, has to be done by the headquarters. So the HR department in the headquarters will have to take the control of staffing all the subsidiaries. And this centralization will create a huge workload for the HR department of the headquarters. Based on the studies and research of the scholars in the field of international human resource management, the latest addition to the staffing approaches of multinational corporations is the regiocentric approach. As I mentioned before, this had not been suggested by Perlmutter, but has been later added based on the research findings of subsequent scholars. So what is this approach? It's called the regiocentric approach. So the central focus of this approach is not about one country or not about the whole world, but about the region in which the multinational company is located. So, what is the speciality of this approach? This approach utilizes or uses a wider pool of managers to staff their international operations or subsidiaries than the polycentric approach. So, under the polycentric approach, we all know that the subsidiaries are staffed by the local staff or the host country nationals. But under this approach, a wider pool, broader pool of managers will be utilized or used. But it's limited, or it's done in a limited way than the geocentric approach. That means we are not restricting our subsidiary to staff from the host country or locals. We are getting people from other countries. But that's not from the whole world like in the geocentric approach. That's not from the parent country like in the ethnocentric approach. But we are staffing it by using staff who can come on expatriate assignments from the region. So, under this scenario, as I have explained in the bottom, in the example, a multinational corporation based in USA or headquartered in the United States of America could create three regions. The multinationals can determine how many regions it would create and how many countries would be created by one region. So, a US or United States of America based firm or a company could create three regions as the Europe, the Americas, and the Asia Pacific. So then, out of these three regions, the European staff or staff in the subsidiaries located in the European region will be transferred or sent on expatriate assignments to staff the subsidiaries throughout the European region only or only within Europe. That is, for an example, from UK to Germany, France to Belgium, or Germany to Spain, but not from UK to America or Belgium to Asia Pacific. So, under this approach, the staff of a multinational company will move outside their own countries rather than staying restricted to their own country and having very limited exposure. But they will not be sent all over the world like under the ethnocentric approach or the geocentric approach. But they will be sent only within a particular geographic region as we discussed. That is within only Europe or only within the Americas or only within the Asia Pacific. So, what are the disadvantages of this approach? So, for each region, there will be a regional headquarters. So, the managers in the regional headquarters are not promoted or sent to the headquarters. So, the managers who achieve the top level or who come to the top level of the regional headquarters will not be promoted to the corporate headquarters if it is out of the region. But only thing is that they have the career developmental opportunities within the region as they enjoy regional autonomy or regional freedom in making decisions related to the region. So, what are the benefits that a company could enjoy by adopting the regiocentric approach? What are its advantages? It allows interaction between executives in the regional headquarters from subsidiaries and parent country nationals posted to the regional headquarters. So, the regiocentric approach allows or creates an opportunity for interactions or connections between executives in the regional headquarters from subsidiaries. So, the executives or the employees who perform well or sometimes who require training from the regional companies may be sent to the regional headquarters on an expatriate assignment. And the parent country nationals also come to the regional headquarters. They don't go to other regional subsidiaries. So, the regional headquarters is a place for the executive level employees from the subsidiaries to interact or get connected with the parent country nationals who have been also posted to the regional headquarters. Regiocentric approach reflects some sensitivity to local conditions. It shows or reflects or demonstrates that the company is adopting a staffing approach which is somewhat sensitive to the local conditions of the host country. Why? Because they are allowing the staff of the host country to occupy all the positions in the subsidiaries in a region. And also at the same time, it paves or creates the way or the path to move to a geocentric approach in the future, which is a gradual transition from regiocentric to geocentric. Factors that will affect on deciding the approach adopted by national company to staff its subsidiaries. There are different factors. One would be the top management's attitudes. Definitely, as we discussed from the beginning, the staffing policy used by a multinational corporation to staff its subsidiaries will depend on the attitudes of the top management or the senior management of the company. So based on that, the general staffing policy of the organization will be determined, and in some cases this general staffing policy will be used across all the subsidiaries. So, if the top management thinks that the staff at the headquarters or the staff from the parent country are the best to handle the headquarters as well as all the subsidiaries, they might go for an ethnocentric approach. Or else sometimes the top management might decide that they would determine the staffing policy for each subsidiary based on the country context of each country. They might use different staffing approaches to staff different subsidiaries. Then the nature of the product or products or the service that they are offering might determine the staffing approach. So sometimes if a multinational company uses products as its market offering, they might go for a polycentric approach, because once the products are manufactured and put into the market, there is no close interaction required with the customers by the staff. Sometimes, even for a service industry, this would be applicable. Why? Because sometimes there might be service products that needs to be offered to the customers with direct interaction between the employees and the customers. So in that case, it would be the local staff who would be best in maintaining interactions with the staff and between the staff and the customers. And also the industry within which the organization is in, whether they are in the construction industry, whether they are in the banking industry, whether they are in the finance industry, or whether they are in the insurance industry, will determine what would be the staffing approach. And next, the age of the subsidiary, or the stage of the subsidiary operation. How much matured is the subsidiary operation? So, if we have just started this subsidiary in a foreign country, the subsidiary operation may not be that much matured. In that case, we might be able to introduce, or we might be able to get the staff from the headquarters to introduce the practices to the subsidiary. But once the subsidiary matures, then it is not required for the staff from the headquarters to be at the subsidiary, and it would be the local staff who would be handling the subsidiary operation. Next, the strategic importance of the foreign market. How much important is the market of the host country or the foreign country for the business portfolio of the company? Whether it's a very important subsidiary or whether it's a less important subsidiary compared to the other subsidiaries. So if it is a very important subsidiary, they might not go for approaches such as the geocentric approach or the regiocentric approach. Next, the requirements or the demands or guidelines placed by the host government. What are the requirements or needs placed by the host governments on the subsidiary or the company? So, as I had been repeatedly mentioning throughout the lecture, sometimes when the governments grant permission for multinational companies to enter into their countries and start doing business, it would require to place the government would require some conditions to be met. So one such requirement that would be placed by the host governments would be to generate employment opportunities to the staff of the host country. So, if the government of the host country has placed such requirements, the multinational company might have to adopt the polycentric approach whether they like it or not. Next comes the staff availability. How much staff available in the host country to staff our operation, or how much staff are available in the home country to be sent on expatriate assignments. So when it comes to this availability of staff, we pay attention to the numbers and their qualifications. Lastly, the time constraints. How much time is available for the company or to fill the vacancy? How much time can we take? Do we need to fill this position immediately? So, if we have to fill this position immediately, then we need to use a approach other than the geocentric approach because it takes a lot of time. And the cost. So cost refers to how much it would cost for the multinational to fill this vacancy. So if we don't have much money, or if we are not willing to spend much money, we might not be adopting a geocentric approach. We might adopt a polycentric approach. If an organization uses the ethnocentric approach, or in certain instances where the geocentric and the regiocentric approach are used, the organizations are using international assignments, or the organizations are using expatriates to fill in their positions. So, one may be so much surprised why organizations are using international assignments amidst all the difficulties, the costs, and the challenges that the organizations have to use when using expatriate assignments. So the answer is here. The organizations use expatriate assignments for multiple reasons, which we identify as the organizational reasons for using international assignments. The first of which is position or job filling. There is a particular position or a job which is vacant in an organization, and somebody has to fill that position. So then, if there are no suitable employees in the the local context, or if there is no suitable people in the local job market, the multinational may use an expatriate employee to fill that position. So, because of an organizational need, or a need or a requirement of an organization, which means the organization desperately needs a person of a particular caliber. Then, if they cannot find a suitably qualified host country national, when a qualified host country national is not available either in the host country job market or in the host country company, then the company will decide to transfer or send a suitable candidate or a suitably qualified employee from another country as an expatriate. Usually, countries like USA does this. So then this person will then go to the subsidiary and work there and fill that position. So for an example, multinational companies use expatriates to fill or occupy managerial positions or managerial jobs in subsidiaries because they believe that there is a gap between the required level of skills and the actually available level of skills in the host country for managerial positions. Then also there may be instances where there are jobs which require a lot of technical expertise. So then they may use those expatriate assignments to fill in such a technical skills gap related to the launch of a new endeavor, related to the launch of a new product or a new business or a new strategic business unit. And or sometimes when the headquarters wants to transfer a particular technology or a system to a subsidiary, and when it wants the subsidiary staff to use that system, they may use or take this approach because the headquarters staff has the necessary technical skills to embrace the technology transfer successfully and use it while training the staff in the host country. And sometimes the multinationals may use this approach to build or develop management expertise or expertise related to managerial positions in a subsidiary. So then when a person goes from the headquarters or another subsidiary to a particular host location, in one hand, that person himself will also get a lot of expertise and experience. At the same time, that person will guide and develop the subordinates under him and thereby develop the management expertise or skills or the leadership potential within those subordinates. So through both ways, management expertise is built. The second organizational reason for using international assignments is management development or to develop managers for the future or for career development of employees. So, international assignments are used a mechanism of training or developing employees to take up future managerial or leadership positions. Moving or transferring or sending staff or employees to other parts or other subsidiaries or the headquarters of the organization on international assignments for what? For training them and developing them. So that is for training and development purposes. So these kind of appointments will socialize them or familiarize them. For what? To assist in developing common corporate values among them, to help or assist or support them in developing or increasing the common corporate values among them, so that they would understand what are the common values of the multinational and inculcate them into themselves. So, the length of time of these international assignments focused towards management development or career development would vary from one assignment to another. Usually, these are from 3 months to 3 years. So, the length of time would vary or change and may or involve project work. So, when these employees are gone abroad, they are given special projects to undertake in this host location to evaluate their capacity to independently, or sometimes in the foreign location they may occupy trainee positions. They may work as trainees there to learn things from the experts in either headquarters or a subsidiary. So the advantage of these kind of assignments are the ability or the opportunity or the chance for the employees for what? To gain experience, not locally but internationally, to gain international experience. And such experience would result in career development opportunities. So it would result in career development opportunities, and these career development opportunities in the future would motivate the staff to accept this kind of assignments amidst them being so much challenging. The third reason for using international assignments by the organizations is organizational development. Organizations use international assignments for the purpose of developing their own organization or for the advancement of their organization. So, during the strategic planning stage of the organizations establish strategic objectives for the whole organization as well as its subsidiaries. Then they need to identify the ways and means of fulfilling those strategic objectives. So, organizations use international assignments to fulfill or achieve strategic objectives related to the day-to-day operations of the organization, as well as to develop organizational capabilities. So developing these organizational capabilities will enable the organization or the firm to compete successfully along with the other multinational companies, not only in the local markets but also in the global or international markets. So, therefore, for an example, multinational companies use international assignments to transfer knowledge, competency, procedures, and practices into various locations where the subsidiaries are located. So when it comes to a multinational, we all know that it has its headquarters in one country and the multiple subsidiaries in multiple countries. Often, greater business knowledge is generated in the headquarters. However, it can happen in the subsidiaries as well. So once the knowledge is generated or created at one location, it's very important that the company transfers or passes that knowledge to the headquarters as well as across all the subsidiaries located in various locations so that these best practices are implemented all across. Similarly, when there are competent employees or when the organizations identify the important competencies which are developed among a particular group of employees in the headquarters, and when it starts to producing results, they focus on transferring those competencies to the other locations as well. It's the same with the procedures or ways of doing business like performance evaluation, procurement, etc. And practices like practicing gratitude, ensuring employee well-being, etc. So international assignments help the organizations to send people to various locations who would go there and transfer the knowledge, competencies, and also introduce and implement procedures and practices. At the same time, we all know that especially in situations where multinational companies use the ethnocentric staffing approach, they want their subsidiaries to be controlled to a certain extent by the headquarters. So then the need for control is ensured through international assignments. Furthermore, when we move staff, this greater staff mobility or movements support or help the establishment of a global corporate culture or a corporate culture which is common almost all across all the global operations. So, for these reasons, multinational companies use international assignments. During this session, we've discussed the approaches to staffing international operations. So, during this whole session, we looked at what are the approaches used by multinational corporations or internationally operating organizations to staff their international operations around the world. So we identified four approaches: the ethnocentric approach, the polycentric approach, the geocentric approach, and the regiocentric approach. And we looked at the advantages and disadvantages of each of these approaches. Next, we looked into what are the factors which we use to decide on the staffing approach. Based on what factors do multinationals decide on their staffing approach? And if a company decides to go on with the ethnocentric approach mostly, or any other approach, but still decides to use international assignments, what are the reasons for using international assignments, or what are the reasons for transferring staff on international assignment? So under that, we identified three reasons: position filling, management development, and organizational development. With that, we conclude our discussion about staffing international operations. Thank you very much for listening.